So the pain point is the signal. It is the directive. And it's saying there's something here for you. There's gold here. Like there's gold underneath this if you're just willing to face the dragon.
Hello, this is the May Be Mindful podcast, and I am your host, Hannah May. I'm a mother of 6, conscious birth instructor and educator, spiritual growth facilitator, and certified hypnotist. This podcast is about inspiring hope, expanding awareness and consciousness in order to revolutionize the way we live and experience our lives. You can expect thought-provoking episodes each week spanning a range of topics, drawing from both my own journey of transformation and healing and working with others. I hope you find this podcast to be informative, refreshing, illuminating, and instrumental in your own soul's evolution and growth. Let's jump right in.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to my podcast. I want to talk about this really important thing that we need to heal that's got so much reward and surprise in it, but it's one of those things that operates unconsciously and really masquerades. And it's a big deal. It's something that we're not aware of. It's something that we all do, but when we stop doing it and we become more aware of it, there's this gold underneath. So I just want to preface this by saying, if you can be self-reflective in this episode and go, okay, where do I do this? It's going to only benefit you. It's not shaming. It's not about self-criticism. It's not about being hard on yourself, because the fact of the matter is we all do this. And it's really just about becoming more awakened to it and more self-reflective so that we can be unburdened by it. So it's called projection. And it doesn't, have anything to do with your intelligence level. It doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a malicious person. We've all heard this, but you might not know how to apply it to yourself, or you just might not see where you're doing it. It's generally speaking easier to spot in other people than it can be in ourselves, because to spot it in ourselves, it actually requires a little bit of contemplative self-reflection and humility, the one thing that the ego wants to get away from, humility. And so as a kid, we're not born bitter. We're not born really irritated or agitated. I mean, look at a kid. Their natural state is one of curiosity, openness, joy. Thomas Keating says human beings were made for boundless happiness and peace. Anthony DeMello, I love quoting these mystical priests, talked about happiness being our natural state, but it gets covered up, of course, with our beliefs. And then, we start placing our well-being in externalizing things and thinking that it's about circumstance or objects that make us happy. And one of the greatest things that obscures it is this projection, because a lot happens in that projection. There's a lot of disconnection from our true self in it. And so I had this thing happen to me recently where I had a conversation with somebody, and I happen to know their patterns really well. I know this person really well. I know a lot about their life. And they shared with me a story, and they were just venting, but they shared with me a story about somebody that they're really having a problem with, that they feel very hurt by. And it was just fascinating because it was as if they just, they couldn't have more accurately, and I'm just saying objectively speaking here, I was very neutral listening. It was as if they gave the most accurate description of themselves and a lot of their life's behavior that they could. And I just sort of just sat there and listened. And I just was like, wow, it's so fascinating. And so for me, it's just an example of what a psychological defensive and self-protective mechanism projection actually is. Because these qualities that are so disdainful to them, that they have so much anger towards, are the things in themselves that they're not willing to face. And this is basically what stops people from doing their own work, is it feels too difficult sometimes. Those defense walls are just so high. And if they are not equipped to be able to meet themselves with some self-compassion, if they're only going to hate themselves more for being able to see themselves in this way, that they're not going to do it, because it's going to be more self-abuse. And that, I think, is the case for this particular experience. The other thing that was interesting about this story is that this person wasn't lying. this was a somewhat accurate representation, as far as I know, of what their experience with this person was. So really profoundly speaks to this idea of, unless we bring into the light that which is in the dark, then it will continue to drive us and show up in the decisions that we're making. Will continue to attract to those situations in our life that are going to unfold, most unfortunately, seemingly, in the ways for us to become willing to become self-reflective and really come to know ourselves, because that's like the whole goal, is getting back to the true self and to the true identity, because then we can really be free. So this unconscious psychological strategy of projection is basically attributing your own unacceptable thoughts and feelings and emotions to someone else. And to quote Carl Jung, he says, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And I have a 12-step background, and in 12-step, there is a really heavy emphasis. It's like the meat of the work is self-reflection and taking inventory and self-responsibility and accountability, and really seeing where we are in our story, like our part, essentially. And there's a saying, if you spot it, you got it. And so that's not there to shame or criticize. It's simply there to get your attention. It's a great indicator of where you need to pay attention to yourself. It's a pain point. If you're in conflict with somebody and you're feeling angry or resentful, it keeps getting your attention. Like it keeps nagging on you. And sometimes we have long-standing resentments. Then it's a really great indicator that there's something under the surface of that you could see. So I'm talking about anger and resentment, but this can also show up in other ways, like criticism, like constantly thinking that you know what someone is thinking about you, what someone is feeling, and making up a lot of different stories about other people when actually you don't know. Thinking that other people are judging you, or they're disappointed in you, or they're angry at you. They might be, but also if you have a hyper focus on it, oftentimes that can also be a reflection of your own self-judgment or self-criticism, or where you haven't really accepted yourself. Feeling like you're not enough, this can oftentimes and will most oftentimes get projected onto other people and situations around you. And this is why it's so important that we make the unconscious conscious, like Carl Jung also says. Unless we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct your life, and you will call it fate. A lot of these things also, I'll just say without diving too deep into it, are generational. So we can have these generational and ancestral cycles of projection, like projecting relationship with our parents. Even when we do our best to try and do it differently, fear can also drive that. And then through fear, we can project onto our children. I've experienced that. And I've experienced it also in seeing where I've been projected onto. And it's really frustrating because it's not accurate. It doesn't line up with the truth of who we are when somebody's projecting their stuff onto you. There's a mismatch, and it's like this overlay, right? Another area that this shows up in that's really common is in more clinical settings, and like with any kind of therapy, because the therapist, any kind of therapist, with all their breadth of knowledge and information and education and expertise, they are still relying on other sources of information and their past experience with past clients, their own personal experience. Just because you have a therapist doesn't mean they healed their own stuff. And I'm somebody that has been doing this work for decades, okay? I've been doing inventory for decades. It's one of the most incredible tools. I have to keep doing it because the truth is things will keep coming up and causing friction or agitation in us anytime we have something to look at in ourselves, anytime something needs to be uncovered. And as long as we're human, we're going to continue to evolve. And so if we're willing to continue to evolve, then we have to keep looking at that. This is what spiritual growth is. And so I'm very conditioned to take that posture of humility, as difficult as it sometimes is. And the more charged the irritation is, the more difficult it can be to take that posture of self-reflection, because the automatic response is to protect yourself. because something feels threatened. So it's very natural. But if we don't, then we risk, acting irrationally, ruining a relationship, burning a bridge, taking something the wrong way. And so the question then becomes, is the thing that is irritating for me, is it something that I either have in the past or do identify with in some way? And is there something underneath it that I'm needing freedom from? It's basically a distraction from yourself. And here's the thing about it, and like why it's so tricky and why a lot of people don't look at this is because, our psychological defenses don't announce themselves, okay? Sort of like fear. We've talked about how fear flies under the radar. It doesn't walk into the room and announce itself and say, hi, I am fear. Because if it did, you'd be able to see right through and it wouldn't drive you. Projection is the same. It doesn't whisper, hey, just to give you a heads up, you're viewing through an old wound right now. They masquerade as truth. And this is why self-reflection is so incredibly important and humbling. And, the part of ourselves, like I mentioned, that we haven't acknowledged, forgiven, or integrated, they don't disappear, you guys. They continue to get our attention. And this is why certain cycles in our life progress in a way that seems to get worse sometimes. Because if we don't learn the lesson the first time, it's going to show up again in the next relationship, maybe in a bigger way, or maybe in a more painful way. So the pain point is the signal, it is the directive, and it's saying there's something here for you. There's gold here. Like there's gold underneath this if you're just willing to face the dragon. Because that's what it is. It's like a dragon in a cave that you have to get past, but you get the treasure if you do. And you don't actually have to slay the dragon. It's not a strenuous effort. You just have to show up, and something mystical can happen in this. And that's the whole idea and the essence of shadow work as well. It is very intense, and there are things that we run from. But the problem is that we spend much of our lives running from our own shadows, thinking that we're escaping them, but oftentimes we're unknowingly running deeper into a dark forest because we run into, like I said, the very same circumstances that are going to bring it back to light more violently in our being and more painfully. And so we don't get to step into this open meadow and into the sunlight by running faster. We step in only through trust, through surrender, through humility. Like humility and self-reflection is really the key that unlocks and opens this entry point into this peace that we're wanting. And how do we do this? And I've been really sitting with this a lot lately, and I've been deep in my own practice, and I've been evolving my own practice. I've been teaching variations of this practice. But this is why a contemplative practice is so important. Prayer, meditation, inventory, self-hypnosis, silence, presence. There's a lot of overlap in the work that I've done, the different modalities that I've learned, that I've practiced, that I teach, that I've been a student in. And they create enough space for the subconscious to reveal what the conscious mind cannot see. And this is the biggest thing. A lot of times I'll get on and I'll talk about certain things and people go, oh, okay, I'll just go do that. But the thing that they don't realize is a lot of the time they're going to do the thing in their conscious mind, but they're not actually creating an opening in the space for the subconscious to bring forward the information that you're most needing. They'll gain a new learning or understanding, and then they'll take that and they'll go to apply it, but then wonder why they don't get the change that they're wanting. It's because it wasn't embodied. It's very different to be educated than it is to be activated. Because when you're activating through a practice. And these are two different things. There's two different planes. There's the conscious, and then there's the subconscious and the spiritual. But when we do take the time to create an opening and to create that space for the necessary vital information, essential information that we're needing to come forward, that's already there. It's just covered up because we've been living too cerebral, then it's like this greater reality that we don't see most of the time opens up. And this is tapping into a different frequency and a different current that we can then start to attune to more and more and more, because it becomes very practiced. These pathways become more well-worn. We just become more attuned to it, and we start to see it in different situations and in our daily life. And then it becomes more of an intuitive response. So healing doesn't actually make other people better, although you might think it will. You might think they've changed, but maybe you're just seeing differently, because what it does is it frees up the space that they otherwise occupied inside of you. The things that might agitate you just roll off like water off feathers versus absorbing them and attaching to them. They just bug you less. And that's the most beautiful thing about healing projection. That's the payoff. That's what makes it so worth it. Even though there's like this cost, there's this ego death involved in it. It's really hard sometimes to look at yourself when you feel very justified or vindicated. And so it just means people get under your skin less. People bother you less. It's just not as much of a thing. What this might look like and how it might show up is you might replay conversations less. You'll be giving much less energy to people that agitated you. Your energy will get freed up and you'll be able to channel that into creativity or whatever brings you joy, into the relationships that you have that you do enjoy. You'll be able to enjoy your relationships probably more if you don't take things so personally. You'll spend less time trying to understand or change people and like wondering why or trying to figure them out. Like, what a waste of time, really. I mean, if you want to just sit around and think about somebody else to try and figure them out and dissect them, you can. But like, think about how much valuable time and energy that's taking up. Like, where else could that energy go, you know? I mean, there's not enough hours in a day, in my opinion, to do all the things that I want to do. And so when you add in a resentment or like a fixation or obsession on something, or just feeling or being really impacted or affected by somebody and taking something really personally, that's a big drain in general. That can also make you really sick. That can also physically make you sick. So most of it just comes from our past experience. And so the need to stay open is ever present if we don't want to fall into projection. Like, present and open to possibility and like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Like, that's humbling, right? To say that to yourself, like, oh, I could be wrong. But that's a really helpful question to yourself, to just like seeing something differently if you're having a negative impact by everything around you. It's really helped open my mind to these automatic pathways and automatic conclusions that we draw, even though maybe a majority of the time that's a generalization that could be very accurate. We're subject to human error. And I think that is really important, to remain connected with that knowledge of ourselves. Like, we are not God and we don't know everything. And so we can't pretend to be that. But the beautiful thing is that we do all possess access to God within, I believe. So when you open up a space for somebody to like access their own innate inner wisdom, then they will get the direction and the information that they're needing. And so this is just where my thoughts were at today. As always, I love getting your feedback and seeing what resonated for you. And I hope you guys have an awesome couple weeks. Looking forward to next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Maybe Mindful podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us grow and improve. For more information, resources, and exclusive content, visit our website at maybemindful.com, or go ahead and follow us over on Instagram at maybemindful. If you enjoyed this week's episode, please give me a follow, screenshot the episode, and go ahead and tag me until next week when I bring you another thought-provoking and inspiring topic. Until then,